So I am doing a wonderful interview here with Sammy Blindell. Put it into context, this is my Thursdays with Penny series of interviews that I do with masterminds. So masterminds to me are people that are highly skilled, they have an amazing expertise, they're very passionate, they're good people, and they work with us on a 12-month program to really enjoy being in a community and support one another and grow in whatever way each individual wants to grow. And it's very exciting because I get the chance, and so does Thomas, to get to deeply know people. And that's really important to me. For 22 years since Thomas and I started working in small businesses, people constantly ask, who do you know who can? And from an ethical point of view, I don't like recommending people unless I've sort of consumed their service or got to know them really well. And so Thursdays with Penny, with our experts, are where I have got to know the skills and the ethics of the people. And so Sammy Blindell, that you can see on here, so you can wave, Sammy, but I'm not going to let you speak yet. She's going to talk about, in this conversation, a great topic, how to avoid brand burnout. Sammy's you may have come across Sammy, who hasn't actually. She's an amazingly prolific entrepreneur online and does a massive amount of speaking. She's an international speaker. And she's also a best-selling author and runs the Brand Builders Club, which is a phenomenal club. You might see it also acronym BBC. But also what you'll hear later in this interview is her passion around her one-drop movement. So Sammy's got over 50,000 entrepreneurs and business owners that follow her because of the way that she's supported them. And I'm one of those. Sammy and I, how long have we known each other, Sammy?
It has to be about 12 years.
I would say.
But I remember Thomas said to me that he remembers me 20 years ago in E-Academy. So it's longer than that, but physically knowing each other about 12 years, I'd say.
Yeah, I think 20 years ago, we both just left school, I think, you know. Don't laugh like that.
Don't tell anyone.
So Sammy's on a mission to help entrepreneurs be really efficient and productive. Her skills are quite phenomenal, and we call on them quite a lot in our mastermind to help one another. But she hates the thought of them wasting time, money, and energy on things. So we're going to really dig into that. So, Sammy, it's really exciting to be here with you today. I'm thrilled. You've interviewed me. Now I'm interviewing you.
The tables have turned.
So lovely. And so it's strange times, isn't it, Sammy? It is really interesting times. You're somebody that's so full of positive energy, which I think that some of that comes from you've got such a sense of your own brand, knowing how to pivot. You know, you've got your brand and you've got a community and you know what difference you want to make to others. We've just been chatting about, you know, how you're thinking about your pivoting your business. And I know that you're running a masterclass for us in our mastermind about that. So there is a raft of things you and I could talk about because your skills are really amazing. But I know that there are 3 questions that I want to talk to you about, which I think will really help anybody that's listening, particularly now. I want to start with my first question is, when did you sort of discover this passion that you've got and what you've been doing for so many years?
Great question, and thank you for having me on the show. It is really lovely to have you asking me the questions. So I guess since I was 8 years old, you know, I had a session actually with I believe that if you're going to work on your personal brand, you shouldn't be doing that alone. I'm always going to other experts to support me, which is one of the reasons I'm part of your mastermind. Is like, you know, we need the mirror held up to us. Doesn't matter what expertise you have, always go to somebody else with that expertise to hold the mirror up for you. And many years ago, I brought somebody in to say, hey, you know, I'm helping everybody else with their brand stories. Help me. You know, I need to get to the bottom of mine. And one of the questions that I was asked were, you know, like, what's your history? What's your background? So I went into my background and they said, yeah, but what about that background? What's that background? And when I looked at it, I realized that I come from this tremendous line of artists, musicians, creatives, inventors, entrepreneurs. I come from a very entrepreneurial background, and I never realized that before. So really thinking about my pedigree I think that was one of the first ways that I realized, wow, actually it goes way back before I was even born. And so, you know, it's this innate thing that's in me to always want to solve problems. And I think since I was 8 years old, and my granddad said to me, you should be a graphic designer, because I was so creative. And I said, what's one of those then? And he said, well, you get to travel the world, and you get to, you know, help people to grow their businesses, and you're a designer. And he told me all these things. And I was like, I definitely want to do that. And so from the age of 8 years old, I was set on how could I be the best designer that I could possibly be. But inevitably, I got there. And because it was somebody else that had given me that dream, I got to that and realized it wasn't my dream. And so that was a point at which I realized then that I'm bigger than this identity, I guess, that I'd been kind of handed down and given. And I realized I was bigger than that. And I've just always had this real thirst to know about psychology. I love psychology, buyer's behavior, color psychology. How can you take your brand and connect that with someone in a non-verbal way where they can have an experience with you without you even opening your mouth? Like, that fascinates me. So I dedicated my adult life really to focusing on that instead, and really meeting the design world with the psychology of why people would buy that. And that's where I really started. That's what gave me my thirst. And as I've gone on and on, I've become so fascinated with how are people growing their businesses? Why does that work and that doesn't? And so I like unpacking things and then putting them back together in a way that somebody can really understand it. And that's what I've done. If somebody says, you know, I want to create a product, and I'll say, okay, great, you want to create a product, but have you asked the customer what it is that they want? People, they create things and they burn out. And that's one of the things that I said about this brand burnout is you can, and I've done it, and it hurts, where you get into what I call doing syndrome, where you, just because you're doing something, you feel like you're doing the right thing, but that's not necessarily true. And so, you know, for me, it's about build everything around your customer, and you won't burn out because you're doing something, especially if you're a personal service. If you really love what you do and you love serving people and you're a support-based personality, then you're going to love building things around your customer. You're going to love the feedback that they give you when they say, thank you so much. That nobody else listened to me. You're the only one that's listened to me and given me exactly what I want. And so I've never built anything that somebody didn't want to buy, really. And I see a lot of people spending a year making a mini course, and then no one buys it, you know, and then they feel like they're the failure and they burn out it's like their soul burns out because they feel it's them. But it's not. It's just the process. That's all it is. It's a simple process, as you know, because you've built so many amazing things. And it's about thinking exponentially, I think. If you try and do everything yourself and keep too much control, then that's setting yourself up for brand burnout, because no one can do anything alone. It takes a village.
What I find so fascinating when I sit in the mastermind, and, you know, your creativity is phenomenal. The way you see things, it's very unique, you know, Sammy. It's just phenomenal the way somebody will mention something and you just explode with these ideas for people. It is quite incredible to observe. I really admire it. So I love that. So you developed this passion, and I know you've had a journey to here, and you built, you know, a big agency, which I know about. We haven't got time today to go into that, which was a fascinating story and also was incredibly successful. But you know you've sort of taken more control of your life now, and I love the way you live your life now. And in fact, some people might be able to see your porthole at the back there, isn't it?
I live on a boat.
You've taken real control of your life as an entrepreneur. Something that, you know, that's a really important message to me, and something I chose to do a couple of years ago. So my next question, now we've looked at you and the phenomenal creativity you have, the fact that you love helping people to build their ideas out, etc. And you've got this brand builders club. What do you wish you had known? You know, if we take you back to 2002 when you started your journey, when you were just leaving primary school, I'm assuming.
I feel like I'm still at school now. Like I'm learning every minute of every day.
What do you wish you'd known then when you started back there? Which, when you're talking startups, there's going to be a lot of startups happening now. What would you say you wish you'd known then?
Oh, that is like bright, glaring, whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, and that's what I learned really from building that agency. When I built that agency over 7 years and built 5 other companies at the same time, I kept building just because I could, not because I should. And all throughout my first book, I say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And, and actually, I would say that my life was completely out of control. I wasn't happy in my relationship, so I turned to work. Well, I was great at avoiding the relationship and brilliant at building business. So I ended up building things away from. And so everything I built was to move away from pain. I didn't ever want to have no money, because that's what had happened to my mum. I'd seen that happen to my mum when her and my biological father got divorced when I was 2. I saw her emotionally and physically crushed financially. And I must have made some unconscious decision at that age that was never going to happen to me. So I was running all these different limiting beliefs and fears that were fueling the business. I know a lot of people that are driven by anger. They're driven by these things, but it's still an away from. And when I burned out. I burned out, classic burnout. I actually sold my business for £1. I was so burned out. I had this £7.8 million business. I sold it for £1 just so that I could buy myself peace. And that was the big thing. So the learning point that I would say to anybody is be so clear on the vision for your life and build your business around that. I was building businesses thinking that was going to give me a life. But that wasn't what gave me a life. Getting focused on the vision for my life. What is my purpose for being here? What do I really want to do? What's my one drop? How am I going to create a ripple by existing? Like, what am I going to leave the world with when I'm no longer here? So getting really clear on that, being able to see where is my brand going to land and having a vision for that. That was so powerful. And now I've built my life completely by design. And I knew exactly what life I wanted to. And it took a while. It wasn't something that came to me naturally. I'd never done a vision board before. I'd never stepped into the future or done any of that work. I was too busy helping others to do it themselves. So to do it on, I think that was the key thing. And I would say to anybody who's either it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, doesn't matter whether you're starting up, you've got an idea and you're thinking of starting up, you've been in business for 20 years, 50 years, doesn't matter. I would just say reconnect with your purpose. Is it really where you want to go? And I was on stage in Brighton about 3 weeks ago. And I asked the whole audience, how many of you have been in business a long time, but you're feeling the calling within you that what you're doing isn't 100% what you're meant to be doing? And near enough, the whole audience put their hands up. So why wait until you've built that? Just think about now, today, this moment is the first moment of the rest of your life. You get to choose. And when I took responsibility for that and I started choosing based on the vision that I'd set for my life, I then built the business around the life that I wanted. And I can't tell you how much more rest, how much more sleep. I sleep really good. and that's the thing that happens when you're at peace with yourself and you're at peace with your business. You can then attract clients who are also like that. Then you're not attracting reactionary people because you're not in a reactionary energy. Energy attracts energy.
That's stepping back, which so many people, when they go into scarcity, and I know that at the moment through this COVID crisis, so many people have gone into reaction and fear mode, and they're actually not really appreciating the potential of stepping back now, and even giving yourself 2 weeks, 3 weeks to just step back and start to look at what life you'd like to design. I love that. I designed my life because, being the leader of the life that you want is something that is so important to us all.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that, Sammy. There's some really great nuggets in there for people who are listening to this. It takes courage, it does, but it also takes a lot of faith, hope, and trust in your future to just say, this isn't working, or something could be even better than it is. So I absolutely love that. So we've looked at the brand, and if anybody's just joining this conversation now, or they're listening to this as a part conversation, we're talking to Sammy Blindell from the Brand Builders Club, and Sammy's sharing her wealth of experience over her passion of building people, helping people build the life they want, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And designing that.
Liberating. It's liberating their life, liberating the message and the ripple effect they want to make in the world.
Absolutely. So my third question to you, which if anybody's listening to this as a series or all the way through, is what would those three biggest lessons be? That's a big one there, but because you've given us a lot of thoughts to have. What are the three big lessons then?
The three big lessons that unpack that particular one. Okay, so I would say vision.
Yeah.
Really, this comes down to 3 V's. The first V is your vision.
Yeah.
Really think carefully and selfishly. Be really selfish in this. And we're always taught, be supportive, serve others. Well, you can do that, but you can't serve from a saucer if your cup's not full.
Yeah.
So let's fill your cup first so it's overflowing. And then you can be so much more in your power, and you can serve with much more certainty. What people are really buying right now is certainty. Where they are is uncertainty, and they want certainty. And the more certain you are about your vision, and the more you are the living, breathing, walking, talking, eating, sleeping proof that you're actually doing it as well. Like, how many people do you know that talk about being this, living a millionaire lifestyle, and they're clearly not doing that? Or, weight loss consultant who's 5 stone overweight, but they're teaching others that it's not congruent. No. So step into your vision and be the vision, be the best demonstration of what it is that you want to leave the world with. What ripple effect is it you want to make? And be really clear about that vision and build everything around that vision. The second V, is your values. Oh my gosh, like, you're going to know as soon as you go away from your values, your heart, your spirit, everything about you is going to know that you're doing it. And you're going to feel it in your gut, and you're going to know, but maybe you don't listen to your gut instincts as much as you could or should. And I know that's certainly what stopped me getting further in my life, is when I felt the calling, or I felt the gut instincts and I haven't listened to it. If you know what your values are, what are your 3 core values? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? Like, if I were to ask you to put a flag on the moon and say, who are you? Not what are you, or what do you do? Who are you? Who are you? In your best moments and your worst moments, you're going to come back to really 3 core values. So who is that? Who is that person? When you're having a conversation, or you're maybe experiencing a judgment, right? If your core value is quality relationships, and then you say something bad about someone, it's not going to feel good, is it? Well, if your quality relationship value is saying, hang on a minute, you care about quality relationships, how can you say something awful about that person if quality relationships is your thing? Your inner guidance system is just putting its hand up and poking you and giving you a prod and letting you know that. So if you know your core values, then you'll be able to, whether you're building a brand or not. I mean, you're a brand whether you like it or not. Hi, Penny. You literally, and this is the interesting thing, is you can have a brand without having a business, but you can't have a business without having a brand. And we know that because you could be the smiliest person in the room, and that's your brand. You could be the person who always delivers on your promise. That's your brand. You could be the person that says you're going to be there on time. That's your brand. Equally, the most miserable person in the room, and I'm sure we all know one of those, that's their brand, right? So really understand your values and who you are as a personal brand, whether you're in business or not. Who are you? And then the final V is your value. So vision, values, and value. Know what you're worth. Stand in your power. You have impact. You are already a drop. Individually, we're one drop, and together we're the ocean. But the ocean is in every drop. You are already absolutely freaking amazing. You have value. So stand in that value, stand in that power, and really know your worth. Because when you go below the line, it doesn't feel good, and you start attracting other people in that energy. When you stand in your power, no pun intended, when you stand in your power, people recognize that, and you start vibrating at a different level. And the people that come to you and show up in your life will be very, very different. Yeah. And it's worth reevaluating that every 6 months or so.
Yeah, I love your 3 V's. So vision, value, and values, values and value, vision, value. And what's interesting again at this time, I mean, I know in years to come, people might come across this interview and they'll say, well, what was going on at the time? So obviously we're in the COVID-19 crisis, we're all locked down. And in terms of that 3rd V that you said about know your value, I mean, so many people are reducing their value. They're starting to say away stuff. I know somebody who's, made things free when they shouldn't be.
I know. It pains me.
It's so painful. Tell me about it. So I think, that is such a big, important message, I think, at this time to people. And also what I really believe about it, and I know we've had this conversation, is if we're an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, we're going to rebuild this country and world. Right. Now's not the time to start crippling ourselves with debt. Now's the time to be strong so that we can help others be strong. So
there's some really key things around that as well, Penny. And I don't think people realise the repercussions of it. I did a live in the Brand Builders Club last week about this, is that when you reduce your prices, or if you say, hey, you don't need to pay me till September, the problem that causes is, especially if you've got a membership or a subscription, you're not doing your members or subscribers any favours. Because when they have to find that money, they have to be creative, they have to be inventive, and it's when you have the least resources that you get the most resourceful. So by cutting your prices, you're not enabling them to step into their power and do it. The second thing it does is when you reduce your prices or you cut your prices for a certain period of time, that also creates an entire really negative ripple effect in your entire industry. Because what you do is you set the standard and the value of the industry. Yeah. And when they go and look at other people in your industry, then they're going to look at them at that same lower value. And what it does is when we come out of this bubble that we're in, we get to choose what world we create that we're going to go back to. And if that world is based on low value, competing on price, commodity-based purchases, then we're going to have a big issue. All businesses are going to have a big issue. So it's our duty, not just our responsibility, but our duty to maintain our value at this time.
Yeah, I think that's so key, Sammy. And the reality is, I'm hearing, and I know you are, and there's no BS here. I'm hearing people sell products, reinvent themselves, and be selling those products. People making a lot of money at the moment. I've got one expert that I work with in the mastermind. He sold £6,500 worth of product into our mastermind group recently. There's money. There is money, and people mustn't feel that it's all gone away. And also, the government in the UK and hopefully elsewhere are really trying to make sure that there is money. They're supporting its jobs. They're doing all they can. So let's all believe this, because it's true. Yeah. So now, as I move forward, and anybody who's just joined us, I'm talking to Sammy. It's an incredible privilege. She's given so look back at this recording. She's given us some incredible insights as an amazing brand builder. One passion that we talked about, and I should have put it on my one drop. You've got
your one drop. It would look great on that colour.
I'm holding on to these two at the moment. For me, they mean something to me. Things. So your one drop movement. So I want to talk to you about that, because I know this is your superpower here of what you want to really make a difference with. Tell us about your one drop movement.
Thank you. One drop was really born back in 2002 when I didn't have a clue about business and I was thirsty for all the knowledge that I could get. And I remember we had Business Link back in those days, and I went to this Business Link presentation, and I remember seeing on the screen this quote. And it said, individually, we're one drop. Together, we're the ocean. And it really made an impact on me. They didn't spend any time on it at all. It was just on the screen. And it made that obviously hit a core value for me. And I went home and I thought, well, what does it mean to be a one drop? What does that actually mean? If I could be one, what would it look like? And I started really thinking about that. I thought, right, okay, I'm going to make a commitment to be the biggest ripple maker that I can be in the lives of the people I'm serving. If that's all my brand stands for, then that's what I'm going to do. And so every morning I wake up and I just have a meditation that I do, and it's not a serious thing, but I was just doing it for me, okay, guide me to be the biggest ripple maker that I can be today. And I just did that unconsciously, unknowingly. It just became a thing. I never told anyone about it. I didn't mention it. I thought it was nuts. I thought people would think I was crazy if I told them. So I just have done it. And then 2 years ago, I was invited to be on a documentary. So I'm in San Diego and we've finished the filming. We've wrapped up the filming for the documentary and I'm about to get a lift to LAX airport to fly home. And my friend that was dropping me at the airport, who was also on the documentary, she said to me, "Oh, Sammy, I know you love crystals. I've got to take you to this store." So we go and look in this crystal store. And as I'm looking around, I turn around and I see this pendant hanging. And I went, "Oh, that's One Drop." And Lynn says to me, what's One Drop? And I said, well, and I told her the story of it. And she went, "Oh my God, that's amazing. You've got to buy it." So I buy this One Drop. Well, wherever I go, people start asking me, "What's that around your neck? That's amazing." Like, when it catches the light, I don't know if you can see there, when it catches the light, it really like just lights up the chest area. And like people kept asking me and I said, "Oh, I'm going to have to start selling these," and making a joke of it. Anyway, they said, "No, seriously, when you find them, let me know." Well, I ended up with over 500 names on this list of people that wanted to be part of One Drop. And I thought, I think I've got something here. I think, there's people that want to collaborate instead of compete. They've got the same values as me. And so I looked everywhere to try. I went back to the store and I said, "Where can I get more of these?" They didn't even have a recollection of it ever being in the store. I've got it on the credit card statement, but in their store, it didn't exist. I thought, well, how am I going to make these? I had 18 different gem experts go and try and source them for me. Couldn't source them. They couldn't get it anywhere. So, and my last resort, I thought, I'm going to phone my mum because we've got a glass fusing and craft centre out in France. I'm going to phone her and see if she can make this for me. So I phoned my mum, said, "Mum, I've got to create 1 million of these." And she just laughed at me. She went, "What?" I said, "I've got to make 1 million of them. I want to see 1 million One Droppreneurs wearing this as a symbol of unity, a symbol of bonding, community and collaboration over competition." Imagine what a world we live in, how empowered and liberated this world would be if entrepreneurs joined forces instead of competing against one another. And she said, "Well, Sammy, if anyone can do it, it's you." So she said, "All right, we'll try and create it." So for 11 months last year, literally the whole of last year, we were firing every day. We were trying different types of glass. We were bubble squeezing. We were doing different things. And by November, she'd cracked it. And so I gave some to our Brand Builders Club members and said, "Wear them, stress test them, wear them swimming. I want you to wear them in the shower. Don't take them off. I want to know that they're robust before I talk about it." So all of this was happening silently. And my members in Brand Builders Club knew what I was doing. And I saw a couple of our members who were wearing them. They hugged to say goodbye at one of our meetings. And this is when it really did it for me. When people say heart to heart, well, I heard them say drop to drop. Oh. And that's when I realized, wow, imagine, like, I saw people talking to one another. "Oh my God, you're part of One Drop," just because they were wearing the pendant. They didn't even know each other. "You're part of One Drop. What do you do?" They automatically, there was no barrier. The ego was gone. All of the stuff that you find at meetings that's ugly about business was gone. And I thought, wow, imagine if we could do that. And then I had people buying them for their kids and saying, "I want my kid to be a kid droppreneur. And I want to give this to my mum. I want my mum to be a mum droppreneur." And I was like, oh my goodness, this is way bigger. And then I was at the event a few weeks ago where I was talking in Brighton, and one of the people in the audience said, "I need to get one of those One Drops." And I'd only mentioned it. So I gave him, he bought one of these One Drops and he was taking it to his wife, and he sent me this note of what he'd written to his wife to say, "Thank you for being the ripple maker for me." And I was in tears on the train reading this. And Greg's like, "What's going on?" And all the people on the train are looking at me and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so gorgeous. Look at this text. It's amazing." And he said, "Sammy, you don't know how powerful this is. People actually being grateful to others for the drop that they've made in their universe." And so that's the mission I'm on. Forget all the business stuff. It's amazing. But to me, I want to see as many people collaborating as possible. Like Hannah, for example, she's in branding. I'm in branding. We love different things about branding. There could be 5 million people that all do branding. You'll all have a different reason for doing it. Why don't we collaborate instead of compete? Imagine what the world would be like. So that's where I am right now. So, and I haven't launched it yet. So you're literally among the first people to know about it.
Really, to talk about it. Well,
Yeah.
that's lovely, because you know I love it. I absolutely love it, and the values you have are very much my values. So I know you've got a Facebook group, is it?
Yeah. I literally just started this Facebook a couple of days ago. So my husband is the only person right now. I'm going to get them in there.
I want to be number 2, but I'm going to tell people now, and they might get to it before me. But so if you want to be involved in this with Sammy, she's got a Facebook group. Search One Drop Movement Global.
Yeah, it's a global movement. One Drop Movement Global.
And join up, and now you understand it. It's phenomenal. I think that's a beautiful way for us to end our amazing interview, Sammy. So much inspiration in there. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a little bit of self-indulgent stuff, and it is self-indulgent because it helps me and makes me feel great. But also, let me tell you why. So I'm going to ask Sammy why she decided to join a mastermind group. You can see Sammy's very connected. She's incredibly skilled. But also, one of the things that interests me, and I was talking to Thomas about this on a walk today, I find it really hard to have advice and ask people for advice. Okay, it's a problem for me. I talk about it in my book about independence being an overdone strength. And I was looking back, why have I got an issue with that? Because it's not that I think that I'm bloody oracle. I've got loads of stuff I need to learn. But there's a couple of things. One, we didn't live in a family where we were able to really ask advice from our parents. It was a different world. Our parents were from a different generation, and so we didn't tend to go with our problems. So I did become very independent in my thinking. You know, it's down to me to solve my problems. But the other thing was in school, I don't know whether this surprises you, but I was a little naughty. I was a bit giggly. I was quite giggly and I was quite chatty, and teachers were slightly annoyed with me. I never ever did anything naughty, but I was probably a bit annoying in the class, a bit irritating. And if ever I asked a question, they used to make me feel like I was an idiot and used to humiliate. I used to be quite humiliated. You know, you're not listening properly, or you should know that, or go and, you know. And so it did make me stop asking, right? So I've got a challenge with this. So, and I was once told that I was uncoachable by someone. And it really, now, when I hit my crisis moment, two and a bit years ago, I realized that these are one of my strengths, and it's my overdone strength, my independence. So I really admire strong people like you deciding to go on a mastermind group, because you've been phenomenal in it. But so what I want to ask is my long way around asking this, because other people might relate to this a lot, you know, but why did you decide to invest in being in a mastermind group and put your trust in that? And what's it been like for you?
Wow, that's a big question. So the reason why I decided, I chose and specifically was looking to be part of the right mastermind group, I looked at other masterminds, and so, you know, the reason I chose this one was because I think it's incredibly important to grow with people who have already trodden that path. So I didn't, with the other masterminds, they were very nice, but you've trodden the path that I'm on. So I want to learn and model and, quench my thirst for, well, how do I get where I want to go at that next level? So I think that's one of the reasons why I chose this one, because that's important to me. The second reason is that whilst we're all busy being busy, we can create instead of a business, we can create a busy mess instead of a busyness, right? And we get busy being busy. And so it was really important to me that I was accountable. You know, if I'm going to ask my members to be accountable to me, then I need to be accountable to someone. And it's really important to be part of a group of like-minded people who aren't afraid to say, hang on a minute, you said you were going to do this, but you did this instead. Why was that? You know, people that are strong enough to be kind in their feedback, but also to be very serious with you. You make a serious commitment to each other and say, listen, this is where I'm going. If I start to go off track, I give you permission to let me know that. And there's a lot of masterminds that I've been a part of before where they haven't been strong enough to do that, and they all nod and they say yes, and they they're polite. Well, I mean, there's been moments in our masterminds where I've had the whole table say to me, hang on a minute, Sammy, like that's going totally against the thing that you said you were going to do. What if you did it this way instead? And that's what I love, is it's not a don't do that, it's have you considered that there's another way? And the only way that someone can do that is if they've got the experience to be able to say that to you. So I think you've been so careful in who you've selected, and you've been so brilliant at the people and the spirits that you've brought together. And I implicitly trusted you to know that that was the right thing, and to put me with the right people. And so it had to be you.
Oh, that's really lovely, Sammy. Makes me feel I need to get back on the phone with you straight away and do even more for you now. I wish I was also doing.
It's really important to have like-minded people and to choose the right people. They've got to have gone where you're going. You know, and there's no point in being with something like this. You don't go to it for affirmation. You go for it for transformation.
Yeah. And there's always resistance, isn't there? What's been incredible, because when you choose your masterminds, and this is why, and I like the fact you know, we have quite a few people apply, but I like the fact you said, you know, we do choose and we do select and we make a chemistry of it. Your skills in the room are phenomenal for everyone. As I've said earlier in the interview, it's incredible, your creativity. It's so, but you witness the resistance people have as well. I mean, people do resist change, don't they, to ideas.
I think I've had the most breakthroughs probably in the group. You know, people in the group have said, why are you part of this? You're obviously doing all of this stuff. And I'm like, seriously, right? I come to this because I want change. I want to be the best self that I can be. And the only way I can do that is if I've got strong people holding a mirror up for me. Right. I don't think there's a session that I haven't burst into tears, either in the session or outside of the session, because what you're doing in the mastermind is you're confronting serious, genuine issues that we go through personally as we build a business. And yes, we've touched on business stuff, and we do brilliant business stuff at the masterminds. It's the personal, it's the emotional stuff that you've clearly been through. And actually there's a stress and a trauma that many of us carry through. I was carrying our very first session. I didn't realize how much trauma I was carrying around the financial responsibility I had when I built that £7.8 million business. I didn't realize the trauma that I still had in my body. And in that first session, it all just unlocked. It came out. Well, if it's locked up and it's hidden, nothing can get in. It's like you've compartmentalized that thing. The only way you're going to be able to move on and do bigger, greater things is to be able to unleash the stuff that you've hidden away, and to be able to be confident and safe. And know that you're not judged and you're fully supported. That has been such a breath of fresh air for me. And your statement, packing your parachute, I like, my parachute is so freaking packed. I mean, you know, I'm invincible. I could do freaking anything with you guys around me. And I know that to be true.
Well, and also what we're celebrating is you're now becoming one of our experts.
Yay!
Which we've had that. Somebody from Mastermind 1 has become an expert, Harry, and now Sammy's one of our experts, because your skills are phenomenal. And thank you for this really wonderful conversation, Sammy. I've absolutely loved it, and I hope everybody else has. And if you're listening back as a recording, get a hold of Sammy. She's on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Get in touch with me if you want me to connect to her. And the last thing I want to say, which is very important, search on Facebook for the One Drop Movement Global Group. And if you're wanting to make a ripple, then Sammy's the person to help you achieve that. So loads and loads of love, Sammy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.